Today, we're going to talk about a guy who discovered a world more incredible than any explorer ever found. And he didn't do it by sailing across oceans, no. He did it by looking into a single drop of water. He was a total game changer in science, and believe me, his day job is going to blow your mind.
All right, so get this. On the one hand, you have his job titles: a draper, that's a cloth merchant, a clerk, and for most of his life, a janitor. Pretty humble stuff, right? But then on the other hand, you have his legacy: the father of microbiology, the founder of modern biology. So how does a janitor become one of the most important scientists in history? Well, that is the puzzle we are going to piece together.
So let's set the scene. We're not in some fancy university or royal laboratory. Nope. Our story starts in a little dry goods store in 17th century Holland, and our main character is a tradesman named Anton van Leeuwenhoek. He had almost no formal schooling, but what he did have was a very peculiar hobby.
And that hobby? It turned into a full-blown obsession. He spent his time grinding tiny, perfect little pieces of glass into lenses. Each one was like a tiny window. And through these little windows, he would become the very first person in all of human history to see an entire universe, just teeming with life, that was completely invisible to everyone else.
419. Now, that's not a year or some kind of measurement. That is the number of individual lenses that Anton van Leeuwenhoek ground by hand in his lifetime. Just think about that level of dedication for a second. And the reason he made so many is what's really wild. He wasn't just collecting them. He was so incredibly meticulous that every time he wanted to study something new, he would often grind a brand new lens and build an entirely new microscope for it. Sometimes he'd just leave the specimen mounted on there forever.
And here's the crucial part. His lenses weren't just numerous, they were light years ahead of their time. While the most brilliant scientists in the world were struggling with blurry, distorted images from their microscopes, Leeuwenhoek's tiny homemade lenses could magnify things 200 times with perfect clarity. He could literally see things nobody else could.
So what did that amazing advantage get him? Well, it got him a front row seat to a world no one knew existed. He put a single drop of pond water under his lens and saw an entire ecosystem of microscopic creatures. He called them animalcules, and he watched them swimming, eating, and living out their entire lives. It was truly a universe in a drop of water.
But you know, that first mind-blowing glimpse was really just the beginning. Once he knew this invisible world was there, he armed himself with his little microscopes and began exploring. And he started making one massive discovery after another.
And it was like a floodgate opened. In 1665, boom, he's the first person to actually witness blood cells flowing through tiny capillaries, proving how our whole circulatory system worked. 9 years after that, he identifies the red blood cells themselves. And then in 1683 came the big one. He discovered bacteria. The man's curiosity was just bottomless. Seriously, nothing was too boring or too gross for him to look at. He examined insects, scrapings from his own teeth, muscle fibers from a whale, hair, seeds. If he could get it under his lens, he studied it, and he drew what he saw with incredible accuracy. Okay, so seeing all this amazing stuff is one thing, but getting the world to actually believe you, that's a whole other battle. Especially when you're a janitor from Holland writing to the fanciest scientific group in the world, the Royal Society in London, telling them about invisible swimming animals. Yeah, you can probably guess how that went over. Their first reaction was pretty much, "You saw what?" The official records say the society was astonished. And let's be real, they were definitely unwilling to believe him at first. I mean, his claims sounded like something out of a fantasy novel. So how did he do it? How did he convince them? Well, it was all about persistence and just showing the receipts. Over his life, he sent them 375 incredibly detailed letters with drawings. The big moment came in 1677. The famous scientist Robert Hooke actually built his own microscopes based on Leeuwenhoek's designs. And when Hooke looked, he saw exactly what the janitor had been describing all along. It was all real. And just 3 years after that, Anton van Leeuwenhoek was elected a Fellow of the Royal Society.
And it wasn't just scientists who were amazed. His fame exploded. It went global. We're talking royalty showing up at his door. The Queen of England came to see his work. Even Peter the Great, the Tsar of Russia, made a special trip to Delft just to look through the microscope of the man who discovered a hidden universe.
So when you step back and look at the whole picture, what's the real legacy here? It's not just a list of cool discoveries. What this man, curious man, did was lay the foundation for basically the entire field of modern biology.
I mean, really think about how huge that is. Modern biology,
the study of life itself, it all depends on being able to see that microscopic world. Without Leeuwenhoek's work, without the ability to see cells and bacteria, things like modern medicine, anatomy, physiology, they'd be completely helpless. He didn't just find new things, he gave us the key to understand life itself.
You know, you can draw a straight line from basically every major biological discovery of the last 300 years right back to him. Germ theory, genetics, you name it. It all started with those tiny, perfect glass lenses ground not by some famous professor in a university, but by the janitor of Delft City Hall.
And that really leaves us with one last question to chew on. Leeuwenhoek showed us that a whole universe can be hiding right under our noses, completely unseen. It just makes you wonder, doesn't it? Even with all of our amazing technology today, what essential, world-changing things might be right in front of us, just waiting for the right lens to bring them into focus? What invisible worlds are we still missing?